The boat rounds the headland and suddenly Rovinj appears, a tight cluster of terracotta rooftops rising from a narrow peninsula, the Baroque bell tower of St. Euphemia standing guard over the Adriatic. The stone buildings seem to grow directly from the water, their pastel facades reflected in the morning calm. You could be looking at an Italian fishing village, except the signs are in Croatian and the prices haven't caught up to Venice. This is Istria, Croatia's northwestern peninsula, and it operates by its own quiet logic. Istria sits at a crossroads that history has shuffled repeatedly: Venetian, Habsburg, Italian, Yugoslav, and now Croatian, with each era leaving fingerprints on the architecture, the cuisine, and the way locals switch between languages mid-sentence. The landscape shifts too: rugged coastline in the west, rolling vineyard country inland, and hilltop towns that look lifted from Tuscany. In a week here, you could swim in crystalline coves, hunt for truffles in oak forests, explore a Roman amphitheater older than the Colosseum, and eat some of the best seafood in the Adriatic, often for half what you'd pay across the border in Italy. Rovinj is where most visitors begin, and it earns its reputation. The old town occupies the peninsula's tip, and the smart move is to arrive before 9 in the morning when the fishing boats are still unloading their catch at the small harbour on the town's northern edge. The fishermen work quickly, sorting sardines, sea bass and octopus into crates while cats circle hopefully. A few restaurants buy directly from the boats here. If you spot one of the owners pointing at the catch, that's where you want to have dinner later. The old town itself is a tangle of cobblestone streets that climb towards St. Euphemia's church at the summit. The climb takes about 15 minutes if you don't stop, but you will stop. There are too many small galleries, family-run canobas with tables spilling onto the stones, and unexpected viewpoints where the Adriatic appears between buildings. The church is worth the final push. Free to enter, with a view from the bell tower that reaches the Alps on clear days. The interior is cool and quiet, with a simplicity that feels earned rather than austere. Back at sea level, the southern edge of the peninsula has flat rocks where locals spread out for afternoon swims. The water is remarkably clear, and by late afternoon you'll see families, couples and solo swimmers finding their own patches of stone. There's no sand, no facilities, just the sea and the sun. Dinner in Rovinj runs between 15 and 40 euros per person, depending on where you land. The tourist strip along the harbour is fine for drinks, but the better food hides in the streets just behind. Look for handwritten menus and locals eating. 40 minutes south along the coast road, Pula announces itself with a different kind of ambition. This was a Roman naval base 2,000 years ago, and the amphitheater they built still stands at the city's heart, one of the best preserved Roman arenas anywhere, and still used for summer concerts. Entry costs around 10 euros, and you can walk the tunnels beneath the floor where gladiators once waited. What strikes you, though, is how the arena sits in the middle of a working city. Locals cut through on their way to work, kids play football in its shadow. It's monumental, but not roped off from daily life. Pula's old town spreads behind the arena in layers of Roman, Venetian and Austro-Hungarian architecture. The Temple of Augustus stands intact in the main forum, which now doubles as a cafe plaza. Wednesday mornings bring a produce market to the old fish market hall, a beautiful iron and glass structure where you can buy Istrian olive oil, sheep's cheese aged in caves, and honey from hives in the interior hills. The vendors are happy to offer tastes, and the prices are local, not tourist. For lunch, the streets around the market have simple restaurants serving cevapi, grilled meat parcels served with raw onion and flatbread for about 7 euros. The drive inland from Pula changes everything. Within half an hour, the coast gives way to rolling hills covered in vineyards and oak forests. The road narrows and climbs, and then Motovun appears on the horizon, a medieval fortress town perched on a conical hill, looking exactly like a film set. Directors have noticed several movies have shot here, though the town predates cinema by about 800 years. Parking sits at the base of the hill, and from there you can walk the 20 minutes up the steep path or catch the small shuttle that runs every 15 minutes for a couple of euros. The walk is more rewarding. You pass through defensive gates and along fortified walls, arriving slightly breathless at a main square roughly the size of a tennis court. The town itself can be seen in an hour, but the point of Motovun isn't efficient sightseeing. This is truffle country. The oak forests below the town harbour both white and black truffles, and from September through December, hunters head out before dawn with trained dogs. Several restaurants in Motovun build their menus around the harvest: truffle pasta, truffle omelettes, truffle-infused honey drizzled over local cheese. It's not cheap. A truffle tasting menu runs 40 to 60 euros, but the quality justifies the price, and it's still a fraction of what you'd pay in Alba or Perigord. Even outside truffle season, the restaurants serve excellent Istrian cooking: Fuji pasta with game ragu, wild asparagus in spring, and Malvasia wine from the surrounding slopes. The wineries themselves welcome visitors, though most require advance notice. About 10 minutes downhill from Motovun, a handful of family operations offer tastings for 15 to 20 euros, usually with cheese and cured meat included. The production's small, these aren't industrial operations, and the winemakers often pour personally, explaining how the terroir here creates wines that taste nothing like the rest of Croatia. For families and nature seekers, the Brijuni Islands offer a change of pace. The national park sits a 15-minute boat ride from the small port of Fazan, about 20 minutes north of Pula. Ferries run regularly in summer, less frequently in shoulder season, with round-trip tickets costing around 20 euros for adults and half that for children. The main island, Veliki Brijuni, has an unusual history. Tito used it as his summer residence and hosted world leaders here during the Cold War. He also kept a private zoo populated with animals gifted by visiting dignitaries. The descendants of those animals, zebras, elephants, llamas, still roam the island's safari park, which you can tour by electric train or rent golf carts to explore independently. It's surreal in the best way. African wildlife grazing under Mediterranean pines, with Roman ruins and Byzantine basilicas scattered between. The island's beaches are gentle, pebble and grass rather than dramatic cliffs, and the water is calm and shallow, ideal for younger swimmers. There's a single hotel and a few restaurants, but most visitors come for the day. The park trails wind through olive groves and past dinosaur prints pressed into coastal rocks, real ones from 100 million years ago, which children find endlessly fascinating. At the peninsula's southern tip, Cape Kamenjak delivers Istria at its wildest. This protected nature reserve covers the land's final rocky finger, a landscape of low scrub, hidden coves and dramatic cliffs dropping straight into transparent water. Entry by car costs about 6 euros, and from the parking areas, dirt paths lead to beaches that feel genuinely remote, despite being an hour from Pula. The swimming here rewards the adventurous. Several spots have cliff-jumping platforms of varying heights. The locals will point you towards the right ones if you ask, and they'll tell you honestly if conditions are wrong. For something calmer, kayak rentals are available at the Cape's northern edge, and a half-day paddle along the coastline lets you reach caves and beaches inaccessible by land. The water clarity is remarkable. You can see the bottom at 10 meters. There are no towns here, just a couple of beach bars that serve grilled fish and cold beer to sunburned swimmers. One of them, Safari Bar, sits in a juniper grove at the Cape's tip, and watching the sunset there, the sky going pink over the open Adriatic, the day's heat finally lifting, feels like the proper way to end an Istrian day. What stays with you about Istria is the lack of pretense. This is a region that could market itself more aggressively, charge more and draw larger crowds. It has the beauty and history to compete with anywhere in the Mediterranean. Instead, it remains a place where the fisherman selling your dinner caught it that morning, where the winemaker pours your tasting himself, where the Roman arena hosts rock concerts and the hilltop towns go quiet after dark. The Adriatic light slants golden across the old stones, and for once, nowhere feels like it's trying too hard. Thanks for joining me on this trip. Go chase it.